project deployment, picking a wireless access point. By the time we're done here, you will be able to select the ideal WAP for your environment. So it's been nearly a week and a half since I recorded the last video in this series, and that's simply because I came down with this bug that completely took out my voice. I was just able to talk in whispers, and I'm just now getting to the point where I'm well enough to be able to communicate and be understood. So if I sound a little bit raspy, I am. But I just couldn't sit there and create more content. I've got all this content ready to be recorded. So here we go. The topic of this nugget is how to pick a wireless access point and how to pick a wireless access point vendor. I mean, if you go to Google and type in wireless access point, you're going to be faced with all kinds of different images, and it's tempting to look and just be like, well, that one's got a lot of antennas. Maybe that's the best one. Or that one kind of glows, so maybe that's the best one. I mean, how do you pick which one to use? Well, what I did is create a laundry list of common things to look for in a WAP. First and foremost, you want to look for a modern standard. Now, as of today, the day I'm recording this, the modern standard is 802.11ac, and that's a 5 gigahertz only standard. And so, since there are still network cards out there that support 2.4 gigahertz, you have 802.11n that's often integrated with that. So you'll see wireless cards, when they connect to a 5 gigahertz signal, they'll actually report, hey, I'm using 802.11ac. If they drop down and use 2.4, then they'll negotiate back to 802.11n. And I know you know this, but the wireless standard will always continue to evolve. Like 802.11ax is now promising 10 gigabit per second over Wi-Fi that's due sometime in 2019. And who knows, with the beauty of online training, maybe it is 2019 and you're already like, we're there, buddy. Technology will always continue to evolve. The second thing you need to consider is your management options for those wireless access points. Are they cloud-based or non-cloud-based? Now, when I say that, I primarily mean, are you paying the vendor to manage them for you, or more accurately, with you, or are you doing it all yourself? One common wireless access point is Cisco Meraki. As soon as you pull one of those things out of the box and plug it in, it phones home across the internet to the management system that Cisco Meraki has created. It reports into a web interface. And that web interface offers a lot of automated options to deploy that wireless access point and manage it, but you need to pay them on a monthly basis to maintain that wireless access point. If you stop paying Cisco Meraki, your wireless access point stops working. Now, there's some advantages to having Cisco backing the system. You're always going to have automated firmware updates. You're always going to get their latest technology. You don't have to worry about maintaining what's called a controller, because chances are good Cisco can maintain that controller way better than you could. The other option would be non-cloud, and that's where you install a controller on your own. Now, what is a controller? Well, sometimes it's actually a physical box that you install inside of your system. For example, this little gem right here is a Cisco 2504 wireless controller. You install that inside of your network and it controls the wireless access points through a centralized interface. Other controllers that you buy or download, some of them are free, are software-based. So you just install it on a server and it will control your wireless access points. Usually in business environments, you want to stay away from what's known as autonomous access points. These are access points that have a management interface within themselves. So you have to literally access a web interface or telnet or SSH into each one of those access points to configure them individually. It's not uncommon in modern businesses to have 10 to 20 to 500 wireless access points sitting around there. And as soon as you start passing 2 or 3, it starts to just get unruly to be able to manage them. You need to have that centralized control. The next area to consider is the operating temperature and the environment support. Is the wireless access point designed to be installed indoors, outdoors, or both? Most of the wireless access points that you see that look like this are indoors only. If they get rained on or it gets too hot or cold, they will break. If you look at outdoor wireless access points, they're usually a little less glossy. Not as many lights and bells and whistles, but because wireless has become so pervasive in our world, there's not a huge price point anymore in the difference between indoor and outdoor wireless access point. I love what this guy's doing. He's built his own little enclosure there for a Linksys wireless access point. In terms of checking the operating temperature, just look at the data sheet for your wireless access point. Like, for example, I live in Arizona where it's not uncommon to get to 120 degrees and beyond. But I was born in Michigan where it's often 9,000 degrees below zero. You just got to look at the data sheet and say, will this wireless access point survive the elements? Another key to consider is the configuration ease and automation capability. As I just mentioned, you may find yourself in a business where we have 50 to 100 different wireless access points, that we have to install. You want these things to be plug and play. You just connect them to the cable, adopt them into the controller, and it just automatically configures that wireless access point in the best possible way. Some controllers also support high levels of automation. For example, the wireless access points will end up assigning themselves a channel to use, a wireless frequency to transmit on. Some controllers will be able to detect interference or poor transmit rates on that channel and automatically adjust those wireless access points and move them around. And of course, last but not least, is price and operating cost. Just because something's the cheapest doesn't necessarily mean you should always go with it. Long term, it may cost you a lot more time. That's your operating cost. And when I think upgradability, I'm usually thinking about wireless access point antennas, not so much the standard. If you buy an 802.11 AC access point, I guarantee you in years when 802.11ax comes out, it's not just going to have a software upgrade that it needs. It's going to need to be replaced completely. I'm mainly thinking about when you buy a wireless access point, let's just say it has an antenna, can I change that out for a directional antenna? The last thing I want to talk about here is a vendor. Which vendor should you choose? Now, I'm not going to answer that question because a lot of it is a matter of personal preference. I actually personally have experience with these 4 vendors on the screen right here. They happen to be the top wireless vendors in the industry right now today. There are others, and I'm not trying to exclude those. I just haven't had experience with them. Cisco is the name brand in anything networking. And the beauty of it, and I love the saying, you never get fired for choosing Cisco. It's true. When you buy Cisco, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to have a system that works. However, with that industry leader name comes the industry leader price. You're just going to pay a little bit more for Cisco than you would anything else. As a matter of fact, it's only fairly recently in the last few years that they acquired the company Meraki. It didn't used to be a Cisco company. They used to just manufacture enterprise controllers that literally rang to the tune of $80,000, $90,000 just to have the controller that would control the WAPs. And the WAPs themselves were $500, $600 a piece that you would plug in. And it would be awesome, but it would be hugely expensive. So Meraki gave them a way to get in and compete with a lot of these other vendors that are out there. Aerohive and Aruba, which was actually recently acquired by HP. So when I look at Cisco, Aerohive, and Aruba, I kind of look at them all the same, and I can group them all in the same kind of discussion. That really is a lot of your preference. Aerohive literally has the highest satisfaction in the industry. If you look at a lot of the reports in Network World magazine, it's got a very plug-and-play wireless access point, but it sure looks weird. If you're a non-asymmetrical person, you'll love Aerohive. Now, both Aerohive and Meraki are subscription-based, meaning if you stop paying Aerohive for their cloud-based controller, your wireless access points will not be able to be managed. Actually, I have a customer right now that's converting from Aerohive, and they decided not to renew their subscription. The wireless access points will continue to work on whatever the last settings were, but we literally cannot get in and make any changes to them. We can't change a security key or anything. We're locked out because they did not pay their subscription cost. Aruba gives you a middle ground where you can choose to pay on a subscription basis, or you can buy a permanent license that you own and that will continue to be able to be managed into the future. Meraki is trying to find its niche by also offering cloud-based routers and switches as well, where you can plug in literally routers and switches that report to the internet and are configured from there on a subscription basis. It's kind of like network as a service. Now, you've probably noticed I've been avoiding one vendor the entire time because they're a little bit different. The company name is Ubiquiti, and I probably have the most experience with these devices simply because they were really cheap. When I looked to set up wireless in my house and I was Googling around, I'm like, I don't just want to go with the normal, home-based D-Link and Netgear. And I stumbled on this company and I did a little research and I'm like, wow, this is really weird. It was created by a guy who was an Apple engineer in their wireless group. And he's like, hey, I think I can do this. And he kind of just set out and built his own company. And they've grown to become one of the top contenders in the wireless industry. And from a company size perspective, they're like 1/100th of the size of all of these other vendors that are out there. Their main appeal is this one right here, disruptive pricing, where all these WAPs range in the typically $500-ish range. These WAPs you can pick up for about $100. I say $100-ish because there's some variance. And then you find out they give you a controller for free, and it's a controller that you run. It's not one that you have to pay on a monthly basis for. That's the appeal that drew me into the Ubiquiti world, is thinking, man, I can offer this at about 1/10 of the price as these other ones. But it doesn't come without a price. I'd say compared to these other vendors, Ubiquiti will take the most tuning, not only initially, but also ongoing. As of today, and they are always continuing to evolve and develop, there is no automatic algorithm that allows them to adjust to poor signals and things like that. So if you're really looking for a plug and play solution, a lot of these other ones will take all that hassle completely away. Ubiquiti also has a little grittier troubleshooting. Meraki, AeroHive, Aruba, they all have built-in tools that allow them to report back and say, here's what's actively happening and here's the information that you need. Whereas with Ubiquiti, you might end up buying some outside tools, a network analyzer, things like that, to see what's going on. With that being said, the best thing to do to really get the feel for the ideal WAP for your environment is to try some. A lot of these vendors offer free WAPs, as in you go attend a webinar and give them all your information and they'll ship you a WAP for a year to try. So you now know what to look for in a wireless access points, and you've seen the top wireless vendors compared together. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.